Hello and welcome everyone, this is Type V3 and I've chosen to summon the King of Knights to the battlefield, Arturia Pendragon. Better known as Saber, this is Bandai's Chogokin release of one of the most illustrious characters born from the anime scene. Based off of her appearance in Fate Zero, Saber dons her iconic blue dress overlaid with silver armor plates. She looks magnificent from every angle, and the level of attention given to bring out her details solidifies her stance as a premium figure. Shading throughout her dress give the illusion of depth, and bring out the wrinkles and creases. Her armor plates also have their share of blackened edges, and even Saber's hair contains a subtle yellow to orange gradient. Other highlights include the bold etching on her chest armor, and the outlined rivets of her gauntlets. In terms of her proportions, everything generally checks out, but this is clearly a figure who's been designed with the intent on functionality over form. For starters, the huge gap surrounding her waist joint is impossible to ignore, and when put to use, the look only gets worse. There's also her arm connections, which can come off as disattached when Saber is thrown into a dynamic pose. I also think her torso is slightly too small, and the shape of her skirt too perfect. From her profile especially, I think the skirt just protrudes out a little too far in the rear and only emphasizes how small Saber's upper body actually is. Now, if Bandai has ever had a consistent fault with any of their 6-inch action figure lines, it would be in their inability to perfectly capture the likeness of a character's face. And sadly, Saber doesn't escape this fate either. This isn't due to a lack of trying though, as I think this is probably one of Bandai's best attempts yet. All 4 faces actually seem correct in their feature set, it's just that Saber looks soulless, like someone knocked the life out of her. Of course, this is all rampant exaggeration for what's ultimately a small issue. Also included are 2 extra bangs and matching ribbons to emulate her hair being blown by the wind in either direction. Changing them is a bit tedious, but it's a nice touch regardless. Now, being a Bandai product, you'll find a lot of similarities here in Articulation when compared with things like SH Figuarts, Ultra Act, D-Art, and so on and so forth. So, for starters, double-jointed neck joint. So one at the base, one at the top, super emotive. You look how sideways you can get with that. It's kind of strange how sideways you can get. The pauldrons are on their own little hinges so they can go up and down. Shoulders are double-ended ball joints, and they even have the whole, my shoulders can come out just a little bit farther. So that's really nice to see there. The arms, super articulated. Bicep swivel, double jointed elbow, forearm swivel, ball jointed wrists, and then even these little guard things have their own hinges to come in. And I can't see it on this one, but because her other arm is asymmetrical and larger, you can see this hinge come in and out much better. So, real nice stuff there, and this is a sword-wielding character, so you can expect a lot of great sword posability with her. The torso, it has a crunch, a little bit of a crunch there, just at the top, but it's mostly hidden because of the waist piece ends up being activated instead. But you can still use it just ever so slightly. All these armor plates are on their own little hinge, so that you can click up and stay there. As is the dress underneath. I mean, this is 2 pieces at the front, one here and one at the bottom. The sides can come out, that bottom can come out, as can the back. And that's really neat. The legs are what you expect, again, double-jointed knees, you have ball-jointed hips, ankle rockers, toe tilts, or toe articulation. It's all there. Even these, like, ankle guards can slightly move up and down. Die-cast sections, you've probably already guessed it, but every armor piece is die-cast, apart from her gauntlets. These are just plastic, and that's a smart decision, because if these were heavy, then, well, her shoulder joints would have been weighed down. But yes, die-cast, and her entire boots all die-cast. So it creates for some awesome center of gravity, and I found that she has some really great balance. The one thing I will say is because her legs are die-cast, the joints are super tight. So if you leave an ankle out like that and you plop her down, she won't stand, and you can't usually just force her foot down and force that ankle to act to your will. You kind of have to shape it before you decide to stand her. No big deal, but it's just a little bit of extra work you gotta put in. So yeah, I mean, at its core, this figure, or this base for this figure, is just phenomenal, and I've got no complaints with it. It's simply stunning. Unsurprisingly, Saber comes with a variety of swappable hands. Everything's included, from fists to open palms and pointing fingers too. Then there's the 2 pairs of hands specifically meant to wield her weapon, the Holy Blade Excalibur. The sword looks great overall with its chrome finish and metallic paint, but it does feel a bit more fragile in hand than expected. Still, I'm satisfied with how it turned out. Then again, what if the standard Excalibur just doesn't do it for you? Well, luckily, Saber also comes packed with the invisible air and light activated versions. Both have a much more durable construction, which I was surprised with considering they're made of a transparent plastic, but I'm disappointed that the clear sword doesn't come with any wind effect parts. Saber also comes with the hallowed scabbard Avalon. The lining and inscription came out great, and I'm impressed there wasn't any mishaps with the paint. The Avalon can sheath any version of the Excalibur, and its total weight is still light enough for Saber to wield it without issue. There's also a second Avalon included with a peg hole through the top. This, in combination with a special pair of pegged hands, can grip the scabbard in a much more natural way. As for effect parts, Saber only comes with one, and it's fairly big. The half-circle shape is meant to be placed around her while in some sort of action pose, but due to its largely unspecified form, it doesn't quite work brilliantly all the time. However, I can't deny that the translucent aqua color scheme is downright gorgeous. Finally, Saber comes with a display stand, or more specifically, a Tamashii stage arm attached to this huge pedestal and summoning circle. It's completely ridiculous for what it is, but definitely makes her stand out as a display piece. You can also display Saber on just the summoning circle alone, or remove it entirely. From the moment I opened the box, I found myself completely enamored with Bandai's Chogokin Saber. The figure is phenomenal in both design and function, the die-cast content is pleasing, and there's a great deal of accessories included as well. Now I wish I could just end the review here and tell you that this is a must-buy toy, but unfortunately I can't, and it's all because of the enormous elephant in the room. Her price. Chogokin Saber retails for a staggering $90, and I'm struggling to figure out why. In a direct comparison with Bandai's $30 action figure toy lines like SH Figuarts and Ultra Act, it's almost impossible to spot the difference in quality, and I wouldn't blame anyone who thought these figures shared a similar price point. Of course, Saber could be more expensive due to the die-cast content. Well, if that's the case, why isn't she priced closer to one of Bandai's 6-inch die-cast toy lines, like Super Robot Chogokin? Again, differences in construction and build quality are negligible, and with most SRCs hovering around $50, I'd argue that they still make a better case for value. Maybe then the answer lies in the accessory count. Well, apart from the giant display stand, there's no more found here than what's normally included with all Japanese action figures. So then where does her huge cost stem from? In truth, I can only assume her popularity. Bandai is charging $90 simply because they can. In all honesty, if you just want a really good posable figure of Saber in her most iconic outfit, then Max Factory's Figma version is probably all you'll need. On the other hand, if you find the thought of die-cast armor plates tempting, and have been strangely allured by the over-the-top display stand, then this Chogokin might be for you. After all, this is still one of the best action figures out there, and I think she's completely worth taking a look at if you can nab her for somewhere in the $50 to $60 price range. Otherwise, I'd say this is probably a pass for most collectors, unless you're a Saber completist. Anyways, this has been Type V3. Thanks for watching, and I always admired Saber's title as the King of Knights. Right up to the moment I was introduced to the King of Heroes.